The bold and the beautiful spoilers suggest that Taylor Hayes may witness Ridge Forrester cheating on Brooke Logan. Will these ex-partners capitulate, with devastating consequences? Brooke and Ridge's situation in Italy took an unexpected turn, as B&B fans are aware. Brooke's boating mishap was a game-changer since it reminded Ridge of how much he still loved and needed her. Ridge revived Brooke and kissed her before renewing his commitments. Brooke was under the notion that they were going to reconcile, but Ridge is now putting Taylor's departure on hold. Ridge is once again feeling stuck as a result of his earlier pledges to Taylor over their engagement and future. Given Taylor's broken heart syndrome and everything she's gone through to cope with losing Ridge previously, it's understandable that he's concerned about causing further grief. Unfortunately, Ridge isn't always good at resisting temptation while Brooke is there. The longer Ridge waits to gently let Taylor down, the more probable it is that she will experience even more grief. Brooke will continue to put pressure on Ridge, making him feel bad about what he's putting her through. This is a dreadful circumstance all around. Therefore, Ridge's shattered heart will continue to be an issue in the following weeks. There's simply no way Ridge can avoid creating sorrow. Ridge may eventually succumb to the temptation to pursue Brooke and their eternal bond. Ridge may succumb to his feelings and cheat on Brooke ahead of his wedding to Taylor. Whether it's an office hookup or a romp in a real bed, Taylor has the opportunity to witness something sensational. Taylor may learn of Ridge and Brooke's reunion in the worst conceivable way, as B&B is infamous for such soapy revelations. Whatever the case, the bold and the beautiful spoilers suggest Taylor is due for an unpleasant shock in the near future. Taylor's heels tapped lightly against the polished hardwood floors of the Forrester mansion, echoing across the enormous silence of late evening. The home was abnormally quiet, like if it was holding its breath. She hesitated at the base of the large staircase, her fingers caressing the smooth banister, her heart heavy with an uneasy feeling she couldn't quite describe. Ridge had been distant lately, distracted, his normal friendliness replaced by a strange, concerned demeanor. She'd tried to dismiss it as work stress, the never-ending demands of Forrester Creations, but the nagging doubt in her belly had grown too strong to ignore. She checked her watch. 10:47 p.m. Ridge had stated that he would be late due to an emergency meeting at the office. But the office was dark when she drove by an hour ago, and the parking lot was vacant. A shiver raced through her, and she tightened her cardigan around her shoulders. She did not want to suspect him. Not Ridge. Not after all they'd been through, years of love, loss, and rebuilding. They were meant to be over it, stronger than ever. But whispers of doubt had crept in, subtle and unyielding, and she couldn't shake the feeling that something was really wrong. Taylor mounted the stairs, her movements slow and deliberate. She told herself she was overly paranoid. Ridge adored her. He selected her, didn't he? After decades of back and forth with Brooke and the never-ending drama that defined their lives, he had finally committed to her. Last year, under a canopy of stars in Malibu, they reaffirmed their vows, promising to be together forever. She could still feel the weight of his hand against hers and the earnestness in his eyes. But lately, those eyes had become distant, cloudy, and avoided her stare. She reached the top of the stairs and paused. The master bedroom door was ajar, allowing a sliver of light into the corridor. Strange. She had shut off the lights before departing to retrieve some files from her office. Her heart thudded with a slow, unrelenting pace. She pushed the door open, expecting to find the room empty or a lamp left on by mistake. But what she saw left her cold. Ridge was on their bed, the one they'd shared for years, where they'd murmured vows and hopes in the dark. But he was not alone. Brooke was with him, her golden hair flowing over the pillows and her body tangled in the blankets Taylor had carefully selected. Taylor expelled air from his lungs in a short, quiet gulp. Her palm rushed to her mouth, smothering the sob that threatened to escape. She wanted to scream, escape, and demand answers, but her feet remained fixed to the ground, her body betraying her as the scene burnt itself into her memory. Ridge's head was lowered, his lips brushing Brooke's shoulder in an intimate move that felt like a knife in Taylor's chest. Brooke's eyes were closed, a faint grin on her lips, as if she was enjoying the situation. They had not noticed her. They were too engrossed in each other and in a world that did not involve her. Taylor's vision became blurry with tears, yet she could not take her gaze away. It was real. It was occurring. The man she loved and trusted was destroying her heart in the most horrible way. Ridge's head snapped up, so she must have made a sound, a stifled gasp or a shuffle of her foot. His eyes met hers, and for a brief instant, she saw shock, guilt, and something else, resignation. "Taylor," he whispered quietly, as if her name might soothe the impact. Brooke's eyes sprung wide and she sat up, clutching the sheet to her chest. "Taylor, oh my God," she said, her face pale. It's not what you think." But Taylor knew better. It was just what she expected. What she had feared. She spent years convincing herself that it would never happen again. She took a step back, reaching for the doorframe to calm herself. "How could you?" she muttered, her voice breaking. "Both of you." Ridge jumped out of bed, pulling on a pair of jeans with frenzied movements. "Taylor, please let me explain." The word came out sharper than she had intended, cutting through the air like a blade. "What's there to explain, Ridge? I see it. I see you. With her." Her voice quivered, but she refused to shed tears. "Not yet. Not in front of them." Brooke stood, draping the sheet over herself like a shield. "Taylor, I am very sorry. We did not intend for this to happen. It just... Don't," Taylor hissed, her eyes flashing with a rage she hadn't realized she had. "Don't you dare stand there and pretend this was an accident. You've been waiting for this, right? All these years you've pretended to be my buddy and to respect my marriage. And now this." Brooke flinched but did not dispute it. How could she? The truth was written in the flush of her cheeks and the guilty look in her eyes. Taylor turned to Ridge, her heart shattered with each word. "And you? You promised me. You promised you were finished with her. You said I was your future." "You are," Ridge responded, approaching her with his palms outstretched. "I love you, Taylor. This was an error. A moment of weakness. It doesn't change my feelings about you." "A moment." Taylor laughed with a sour, hollow sound. "Do not offend me, Ridge. This is not a moment. You have chosen her." Again. She shook her head, tears streaming down her cheeks despite her best efforts to contain them. "How long? How long have you lied to me?" Ridge hesitated, and that was enough of an answer. Taylor's legs buckled, and she held the doorframe tightly, determined to keep upright. "How long?" she repeated, her voice barely above a whisper. "A few months," he said, his voice full of humiliation. "But it isn't as you think, Taylor. It is complicated." She wanted to shout, throw something, and let him feel the misery that was ripping her apart. But all she could do was stare at him, the man she'd loved for so long who suddenly felt like an outsider. "You've been sleeping with her for months in our house and in our bed. And you think complex is enough?" Brooke moved forward, her voice gentle and appealing. "Taylor, please. We did not intend to hurt you. Just happened. We got caught up in old feelings and—" "Stop," Taylor replied, her tone chilly. "Please stop. I do not want to hear your justifications. You can't stand in my bedroom and say you didn't mean to hurt me. You knew exactly what you were doing." As she moved to leave, Ridge grabbed her arm. "Taylor, do not go. We need to talk about this." She jerked her arm away, her eyes flaming. "Talk? There is nothing to talk about, Ridge. You've made your decision. You always do." Her voice cracked and she despised herself for it. "I was a fool to think you'd ever change." She staggered down the steps, her eyes welling with sorrow. She heard Ridge yelling after her, but she didn't pause. She could not. If she stopped, she'd crumble, and she wasn't about to let them watch her crack. She snatched her handbag from the foyer table and dashed out into the night, the cool air stinging her face as she searched for her car keys. The drive was a blur. She had no idea where she was heading, but she knew she couldn't stay in that house and breathe the same air as Ridge and Brooke. She wound up in a small, poorly lit park near the shore, the type of place she used to take her children when they were younger. The swings creaked in the breeze, a lonely sound that echoed the pain in her chest. She collapsed into a bench, her hands quivering as she buried her face in them. How had things gotten to this? She'd given Ridge everything, her heart, trust, and future. She had fought for him, forgiven him, and believed in him even when others said he would never change. She had told herself that this time was different, that their love was greater than his previous relationship with Brooke. But she'd been mistaken. So awful and devastatingly incorrect. The memories arrived unexpectedly. Moments of joy, love, and a life she believed they had made together. Ridge used to gaze at her as if she were the only lady in the world. They had spent calm mornings sipping coffee on the veranda and contemplating their future. They'd spent the nights holding each other and murmuring promises of forever. Had everything been a lie? Had he ever truly loved her, or had she always been a fallback? A safe choice until Brooke returned to his orbit? Taylor's phone vibrated in her purse, but she ignored it. She didn't have to glance to recognize Ridge, who was most likely apologizing and making excuses. She couldn't bear to hear his voice just now. Not while the hurt was still raw. She sat back against the bench, staring up at the starless sky, the weight of her sorrow bearing down on her. She remembered her children. Steffi, Thomas, and Phoebe, whose memory remained a poignant ache in her heart. What would she tell them? How could she explain that their father had betrayed her again, and that the family they had worked so hard to keep together was breaking once more? She'd always been the strong one, the one who held everything together, forgave, and moved on. But this time she wasn't sure whether she had the strength. This time the pain was too intense, and the betrayal was too definitive. Taylor barely realized how many hours had passed. As the night fell, the park became quieter, with the distant buzz of traffic decreasing. She felt hollow, like a shell of the person she had been that morning. She'd always been proud of her tenacity, her ability to overcome suffering and persevere. But now all she could feel was the weight of her loss, not only of Ridge, but of the life she had believed in and the future she had envisioned. She eventually rose up, her legs rigid from the cold. She couldn't stay here indefinitely. She had to face it, figure out what would happen next, even though the prospect terrified her. She drove to a modest hotel on the outskirts of town and checked in using her maiden name. The clerk did not recognize her and did not ask any questions, which she appreciated. She needed anonymity, a place to hide from the world while she rebuilt herself. Taylor sat on the side of the bed, staring at her reflection in the mirror across from her. Her eyes were crimson, her face pallid, and her hair untidy from running her fingers through it. She hardly recognized herself. This was not the self-assured, capable woman she had always been. This was a shattered person, who had placed too much confidence in others and loved too passionately. She remembered Brooke, how she'd looked in Ridge's arms, so at ease and confident in her position. Taylor had always known Brooke was a part of Ridge's life. His history, his co-parent, and his business associate. But she had mistakenly assumed that Brooke respected her enough to stay away. She had believed in their friendship and the delicate truce they had established over the years. Taylor questioned whether that trust had actually existed in the first place. The next morning, she awoke to a deluge of missed calls and texts from Ridge, Steffi, and even Brooke, all pleading with her to talk and come home. Her heart was too sore to bear their words, so she deleted them without reading them. She needed time to comprehend the betrayal and decide what she wanted. Did she really want to fight for Ridge anymore? Can she ever look at him without picturing Brooke in their bed? The questions whirled, each one a new stab of sorrow. She spent the day at the hotel, ordering room service that she hardly touched and peering out the window at a world that seemed foreign to her. She considered leaving Los Angeles and starting over somewhere fresh, where no one knew her background or grief. But the thought of leaving her children, her job, her life, it was too much. She wasn't ready to run just yet. By the third day, Steffi had arrived at the hotel, her face filled with dread and wrath. "Mother, why didn't you tell me where you were?" she demanded, drawing Taylor into a tight grip. Dad explained what happened. "I'm very sorry." Taylor hugged her daughter firmly, the aroma of Steffi's perfume calming her. "I just needed time," she explained softly. "I didn't know how to face anyone." "You don't have to face him," Steffi added sternly. "He does not deserve you." Taylor grinned sadly. "It isn't so simple, dear. I love him. I always have. But I don't know if I can forgive him this time." Steffi's eyes filled with tears, and she squeezed Taylor's hand. "You don't need to make a decision right now. Just don't let him break you. You're stronger than this." Taylor nodded, but she wasn't convinced. She felt frail, like a shattered vase that may shatter at the slightest touch. Still, Steffi's presence provided a lifeline, reminding her that she wasn't alone, even if it felt like it. Taylor avoided Ridge for the following few weeks, rejecting his calls and refusing to meet. She moved into a small apartment as a temporary place to call home while she planned out her future moves. She immersed herself into her career, helping others through their pain as her own festered. It was simpler to concentrate on other people's issues than to confront her own. But Ridge persisted. He sent messages, flowers, and even visited her office once, his face racked with shame. "I made a mistake, Taylor," he said, his voice raw. "I love you. I want to solve this." She looked at him, hoping to see the guy she had once loved, but all she saw was betrayal. "I don't know if you can fix this, Ridge," she remarked quietly. "I don't know if I can ever trust you again." He departed, and she grieved for hours, lamenting not only their marriage, but also the version of herself she'd lost, the woman who believed in love, second chances, and Ridge. She had no idea who she was without him, and that terrified her more than anything. Months passed and the discomfort subsided, but it never completely went away. Taylor began to reconstruct piece by piece. She relied on her kids, her friends, and her job. She began treatment herself, something she hadn't done in years, and found relief in telling her story to someone who wouldn't judge. She began to see glimmers of the woman she used to be, the one who smiled effortlessly and confronted the world with confidence. One evening, as she went down the beach near her condo, the sunset painted the sky in pink and gold. She had a realization. She didn't require Ridge to be entire. She did not require his affection to define her. She was enough, despite her flaws and brokenness. The realization did not alleviate her suffering, but it offered her something she had not felt in months: hope. She had no idea what the future held, if she'd ever forgive Ridge or find a way to move on with him. But for the first time she felt ready to face whatever it was. She stood there, the waves lapping at her feet, and let the tears flow, not from despair but from relief. She was still here and standing, and that was enough for now.